Hello, you, yes, you right there watching this video. If you like tame, cushy experiences and being comfortable all the time, then stop watching this video right now. Hey guys, it's Michelle, and as you can tell from the title, I'm going to be explaining how to have a backpacking adventure. Everybody has a slightly different take. Obviously, there's no one right way of backpacking, but this is my personal take from a young, very broke person's perspective, so I thought, people would appreciate that. First, I want to define what I mean by backpacking. Before I started really getting into independent travel, I was kind of confused about all the terms out there, but to me, and I believe most people who travel, backpacking essentially means
obviously having a backpack and traveling with that. It's all about mobility. You are moving from one city to another every couple days, every couple weeks. You're flowing, and there's a lot of improvisation. Improv.
I'm going to take you guys through the steps of exactly what I do before I go on a backpacking trip. But first, the most important part of this video that I need you to know, focus. Mindset is everything. This applies for all of life in general, but especially when you're constantly on the move in a foreign country and a lot of things can go wrong. And even that concept of things going wrong is not how you should be thinking of it. Everything is an experience in the end. Don't try to put it in the good or bad camp.
My heartbeat's going around 110 per minute right now, so I probably have a fever. But I'm here. I made it. We're going to Machu Picchu soon.
That being said, also do not have expectations. The coolest experiences I've ever had are the most unexpected experiences and the ones that I did not plan. And when you have expectations, your view turns from this to this. And when you're seeing like this with horse blinders on, you're closing yourself to a lot of potential cool experiences. The other important thing to keep in mind is do not make a plan. I know that runs contrary to everything we're told, especially in the US. You should do your research and make a plan, but see that plan as research, not as something that you have to stick to, like an agenda or itinerary. I also want to share with you guys a very valuable piece of advice that Jen Miller, one of the founders of the TAP grant, gave me before I left on my first backpacking trip in Guatemala. Know how to distinguish the difference between discomfort and danger. Just because you're not familiar with the place and you might not be comfortable does not mean that you're in a dangerous situation. That being said, there are situations where you should be careful, but you need to learn how to distinguish the difference and distinguish those two feelings when you feel them. Okay, now with all that out of the way, let's get started. Step number 1. I mentioned this in my how to take a gap year video, but literally just Google backpacking, insert whatever country or region you're going to. Step number 2. Once you've Googled and read some of the blogs, vlogs, whatever that you saw, and start out thinking big. Literally mark down any place that remotely interests you. Definitely consider the differences between what a city, a small town, and a rural area can offer you.
For example, cities will be more walking tours, museums, nightlife, but it's also probably going to be more expensive. Towns might have a slower, more relaxed feel. More rural areas will often offer trekking and more nature experiences.
Step number 3. Look at a map of the country or countries you will be visiting and find where all those spots you just marked are. Then come up with a path that geographically makes sense. When you are budget backpacking and you are poor like me, oftentimes public transportation by buses or even trains, depending on the country you're in, is the cheapest way to go. So you don't want to be going all over the place like this, you want to be going like smooth continuous line. Preferably it makes geographical sense, but of course if you need to get from one place to another and the bus ride's like 26 hours long and you don't want to do that, go ahead and take a flight. This part's really important, mainly to start cutting out places that you won't be able to see.
For example, if this is the country you're going to visit, and most of the places you marked are up here, and there's like one small town that you thought was kind of interesting all the way down here, you're probably not going to see it. This is also relevant if, for example, here's a place you really wanted to go to, here's another place you really wanted to go to, and in between it's a place you were like, okay, like I guess it'd be cool if I went, but I'm not hellbent on it. It's in between those two places, so it probably makes sense to make a stopover, so you don't have like a 20-hour bus ride, instead you have like 10 and 8 maybe.
Step number 4. After you've looked at a map, research local transportation. Like I was saying before, I'm pretty sure for most countries, overland travel is the cheapest way, especially by buses. But once again, that depends on the country and the region. So do your research before assuming anything. Once again, this is as easy as Googling backpacking, transportation, and the region or country you'll be traveling to. Especially if you're going to be doing a lot of overland travel, this is another step where you'll probably be cutting out some of the places you wanted to visit. This is because what often seems to be the most logical path geographically just by looking at the map is not always how the roads are constructed. This is also a great place to start looking up prices so you can do your budget. Figure out more or less how you're going to get from point A to B to C to D, figure out about how much that's going to cost, and write it down somewhere. Step 5. Speaking of making a budget, this is where you start researching day-to-day expenditures. What I mean is that every day we only need 2 things: food and shelter. That literally makes it sound like you're surviving in the wilderness, so like food and a hostel. Really try not to be staying in hotels if you're backpacking, because first of all, it's wicked expensive, and second of all, you're literally paying extra to be alone in a room instead of with a bunch of people.
That might be appealing to some, but for me, it's like, I'm lonely. Like, I don't want to be alone.
Hostels are almost always jam-packed with young fellow travelers, and they're gonna be some of the coolest, nicest people you'll ever meet, and you might even stay in contact with them and become lifelong friends. So stay in hostels. If you're really broke or really looking for an adventure, maybe try couch surfing. Especially if you're going to be backpacking for a long time, I know the hostel grind can get super tiring, so couch surfing is a really good way to spice it up. It's also free, by the way. You just have to download the app, sign up, create a profile, and start building your presence on the network. Finding hosts who want to host you and building up a relationship with them, that takes a lot more time and effort, but in the end, it's definitely worth it. Okay, I got a bit off topic, but going back to food and lodging. For lodging, like I said, looking for hostels, you just go to booking.com or hostelworld.com. I found that booking.com tends to have more options listed, but with either one, you just put in the location, pick some random date, but make sure it's for one night only, and go to the filters, and you already know, low to high. This will help you get a general idea of how much you're going to be spending every night on a hostel. As for food, all you have to do is Google the countries you're going to and cost of living. This will tell you not only the cost for eating out, but also the cost of groceries if you plan on cooking. Cooking, by the way, is a great way to save money on food if you are once again on a tight budget like I always am. But definitely eat out once in a while, treat yourself to some of that good local food, and be on the lookout for places that look kind of dingy but cheap, but with a lot of people inside. A lot of locals inside. That's gonna be good. Step number 6. Step number 6 is basically just tying everything together. You've already figured out more or less the different places you want to go to, how you're going to get there, and how much it's going to cost. Now you're going to take that transportation cost and you are going to add it to your daily cost of living. For example, if you figure out that hostels are on average $10 per night and food will cost about $10 per day, then that's $20 per day, and multiply that by the number of days you're going to be abroad. So now you've budgeted for food, lodging, and transportation. There are also going to be extraneous costs. For example, if you're going to go out, you're going to be drinking, alcohol, museum tickets, park fees, and souvenirs if you're going to buy some of those. So try to kind of estimate how much you're going to be spending on each one and factor that into your total budget. I like to take that number and add like $100, $200, $300 to that. The longer your backpacking trip is, the bigger your buffer should be. This is in case of emergency or in case you miscalculated. It's always better to budget for more than less, that way at the end you're left with a little extra money rather than scraping for dimes in your pockets for food. So there you have it. That's all the preparation I do before I go on a backpacking trip. I know I made backpacking and having adventures sound super simple, but it really is just that simple. And it's cheap too. If what you really care about is seeing the world, having new experiences, you don't have to spend a lot of money. I'm pretty sure 1 month in South America I spent like $450 total. Your biggest expense in the end should be your plane ticket getting to that country and your plane ticket flying out. Of course, it's important to be prepared, but remember, above all, you should go in with an open mind, so no expectations, and don't be a slave to your plan. Go with the flow. If you don't like a place that you had planned to spend a lot of time in, you are free to leave. That's one of the most wonderful things about backpacking for me, the freedom. Especially when you're doing it solo, everything is up to you and your intuition and how you're feeling in that moment. So listen to yourself and be flexible. And remember to distinguish the difference between danger and discomfort. Traveling is all about opening your mind and pushing your comfort zone. So hopefully doing that and backpacking seems a little less scary now that I've broken it down a bit. If you've backpacked before, let me know in the comments what you think about this video and if you do something differently. And if you've never backpacked before, comment below where you'd like to go. And definitely let me know if you use any of these tips and decide to go on a trip yourself. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe, to share, and to like. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys next time.